NXT. We talk about NXT and WWE, and the names go together. But what really goes together when you say the name WWE or the company name WWE? Do you really think of NXT? Most people think of Raw and Smackdown. When you talk about NXT, you talk about a brand, as far as I'm concerned, that has set the trends for pro wrestling today. But why does Vince McMahon still treat it as such as a developmental for his company? I don't understand. Vince has all these talented guys and girls, and what happens? Triple H builds them up, and then Vince tears them down. He destroys them. There's been evidence of a lot of the wrestlers who have come through that just haven't gone anywhere on the main roster. Today we're going to talk about why NXT should be considered a brand and Vince McMahon should take it more seriously rather than him taking it as a developmental brand for his company. And I don't know if he would consider it a developmental brand. I think he would just consider it as developmental. NXT is often simply referred to as NXT, not WWE NXT. There's a difference. When you say NXT, most people who have watched pro wrestling for most of their life will tell you they love the brand. And it is. That's what it is. It's a brand. If you look on WWE's website, I'm sure you would see that they consider it a brand, but they don't treat it as such. Vince McMahon does not treat it as its own brand, which he should. It has a general manager, William Regal. It has Paul Levesque, Triple H, as the executive vice president. William Regal, who works as a vice president as well as talent developmental and head of global recruiting. What do all these fancy names mean anyway? Well, NXT is a brand, in my opinion, that has absolutely pushed the standard as to what wrestling should be. Professional wrestling should be. They've trained many people to be put on TV, to be brought up to the main roster for Vince McMahon's direction, just to wind up being nobodies. And we've seen it for many years now. We talk about the NXT and how it should be considered a brand, but it's not. Vince McMahon uses developmental territory, basically. Why? He has a performance center. The performance center is a 26,000 square foot facility that has 7 rings, one specially padded for high flyers, for flying moves, a strength and conditioning program, a production facility, an ultra slow camera, voiceover room for performers and on-air announcers to use to practice. The facility was opened in 2013 and replaced the training center from WWE's former developmental territory, Florida Championship Wrestling, or FCW, which was based in Tampa and has been serving as WWE's developmental headquarters since 2008. So if you have a performance center, then why does Vince treat NXT as a developmental instead of a brand? Folks, we're talking about Vince McMahon and his mindset. Now, nobody can tell you what's going on in the mind of Vince McMahon, only he can tell you. What could have been and should have been something very simple, to use the Performance Center as a go-to place to bring up talent and to continue it on to his different brands, Raw, SmackDown, and in my opinion, NXT. So my question is we talk about how Raw and SmackDown are suffering in the ratings and how he just hired 2 new executive directors. Why? They take the heat off of him? We haven't seen any change. I don't think so. So why doesn't he have NXT on one of the networks? Why is it only on WWE Network? Why isn't Vince trying to make millions off of NXT being on a network? Why? Because he didn't create it? Is that why? Everything past or present that he's ever take ownership over, whether it be WCW, ECW, or any of their superstars, he's destroyed and buried. Look at Sting. Had 2 big matches. Lost. Wins and losses don't matter, according to Vince McMahon. And any wrestlers that have come through NXT, he's either had to put his own spin on names or directions of wrestlers that they've gone in. A great example is the War Raiders. Why did he have to change the name? Why? Because you can't say war on TV? Really? The War Raiders was such a terrible name, you had to put your own spin on it? Why? Why, Vince? Why? Why couldn't you just leave it alone? The War Raiders were a built-up tag team that had great promise coming to them. And you bring them to the main roster, you take them away from NXT with the championships on them. Didn't even give them up. Didn't say, well, let's give the championships away. No, of course not. He keeps the titles on them. He takes them away, puts them on the main roster, and now he calls them the Viking Raiders or the Viking Experience. Why? Why? And then we hear rumors about, well, NXT's possibly moving to Fox Sports 1. So what does this mean? If that does happen, then will Vince take it seriously enough to treat it as a brand? Or will we consider it just a developmental on TV? If it was a developmental brand, like Florida Championship Wrestling used to be for them, that was never on TV. So when the idea of NXT was made to be put on the network and it's built up, why not put it on the network outside of the WWE network? Why not put it on a network where you're trying to make millions and billions of dollars off of it? Why does Vince McMahon take talent away from NXT and not care for the work that Triple H and everyone else that works at NXT do? I don't understand. I don't get it. It's baffling. You have a brand that you don't treat as a brand, you treat it as developmental, and then you tell everybody who's talented there, who's made the name for themselves, who's built up a brand of their own, and you bring them to the main roster and all they do is sit on the sidelines and catering. For what? For what? And if you're going to tell me that Vince just doesn't have any ideas for them, then what is he paying a writing staff for, a creative staff for? I don't understand. So the question is now, does the rumors of Fox Sports 1 taking NXT and putting it on Wednesday night, is it possible? Can we see it? That's the good question. What happens? Does Fox Sports 1 take over NXT, put it on Wednesday night, and say, we're going to compete with AEW? Because AEW is more than likely going to be on a Wednesday night. They've given away the date as to when they're supposed to start on TNT, but nobody really knows what's going to happen with that because, there's really been no official announcement just yet. So, if you're talking in terms of putting it on a network, that's the question that we have to go with. If it's doing it, and then if it's considered a brand and it is put on its own day and network, then does that mean Triple H is going to get what he wants and Vince isn't going to be able to take any more wrestlers away from them? Because Vince has done it in the past and it's blown up in their face. Tommaso Ciampa being pulled to be on Raw with Johnny Gargano just destroyed any NXT storylines that were ever going for them moving towards the World Heavyweight Championship for NXT. It's terrible. I don't understand Vince's thinking, but we also have to remember that Vince's ego comes into play with this a lot. Again, if he didn't create it and he doesn't think that it's important, then he's just going to go in a direction he thinks is best for the show. He's not going to think of those two guys and what they've been working towards and where their story has gone in the last 2-3 years. He's not thinking about that. He's not. And and that's sad. So also my other question is, if NXT is a brand, and I believe it is, since 99% out of 100, you're talking about most people thinking that, if you ask anybody who's watched NXT all these years, will tell you that they are the gold standard of professional wrestling. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the fall when all this movement happens, when SmackDown goes to Friday night on Fox Sports and Raw is left on Monday. And the question is going to be is, will these new executive directors and Paul Heyman on Raw and Eric Bischoff on SmackDown do any good? That's going to be a good question. That's going to be a good question, and that's what I want to know. And I want to know what WWE is thinking about the AEW effect and what it has to do with them and how much it has to do with them, because it has a big to do for them. Them putting their show on Wednesday night to go head to head with the AEW show is just, in my eyes, I don't think I would have done it. If I was Vince McMahon, I would say, excuse me, leave NXT where it is, and we'll think about where it needs to be. Now, I also want to address something that I think a lot of people have talked about on a lot of podcasts, a lot of places, and the one thing that everybody says, well, the reason why NXT is so good is because Vince doesn't have anything to do with it. Well, I don't believe that. With WWE's logo on that NXT logo itself, that means Vince McMahon has a hand in something that goes on in NXT. And the better question is, that goes with that is if that's the case, if you believe that NXT is not touched by Vince McMahon, then how do we explain what happened between Killian Dane and Matt Riddle? Matt Riddle goes and says about Goldberg that, awesome job, you're already busted open and the match hasn't even started, because Goldberg has a reputation for slamming his head into a locker and busting himself open, and we all know how much Vince loves color in his match, and if you don't know what that means, that's blood. And a lot of times Vince doesn't like it, especially in this era. Maybe back in the day when the Attitude Era was going on, blood was acceptable. In hardcore matches, that's fine. But in a regular standard match, especially with a legend like The Undertaker, just not happening. So, the match happens between The Undertaker and Goldberg at Super Showdown. Matt Riddle has something to say about a Hall of Famer, and now Killian Dane buries him in such a big spot, smashing him through the entrance ramp on NXT, July 17th, 2019 edition of NXT. I just, it boggles my mind, because if Vince doesn't have anything to do with NXT, then how do you explain this? Killian Dane just coming out of no place just to attack him and put him through the stage, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So, buried, absolutely. There's no question in my mind. And so if Vince doesn't have anything to do with NXT, then why did this happen? Who made this happen? Triple H? William Regal? If I'm a betting man, I'm putting my money on Triple H for sure. And if Triple H did this to Matt Riddle, and his push is not going to go as far as it once was, then Is it only a Vince McMahon mindset that when stuff like this happens, that wrestlers need to learn a lesson? Or did Triple H get an earful from Vince? Which is it? Is it Triple H doing what's right for the business and burying Matt Riddle? Or is it Vince McMahon giving him an earful saying, what's going on over there? That's my question. That's what I want to know. Because if we're talking in terms of why anybody would be buried, I don't know. I mean, unless you've really gone out there and went into business for yourself, I don't believe in burying wrestlers at all. I don't believe in burying wrestlers at all, and it's just, I don't think it's right. And I don't say what Matt Riddle did was being an outspoken performer, wrestler, but at the same time, everybody's got an opinion, and if you voice your opinion, what is WB telling their wrestlers? Oh, well, if you open your mouth, you're going to be buried, or you're not going to get that push, or that title run is going to maybe go away and be put on somebody else. You know, I mean, The Undertaker's a great performer. I have all the respect in the world for The Undertaker. I love The Undertaker. I've been watching The Undertaker for many, many years. This is a person myself who's been watching the business for many years, over 30 years, since I'm a kid. And The Undertaker was always one of my favorites. But, you know, The Undertaker needs to get out of the ring. Well, you know, everybody, you know, there's a saying, every dog has its day. And it's done. I mean, The Undertaker needs to retire. He needs to get out of the ring before he has any more problems. He just had a hip surgery not too long ago. You know, he can look good. He can be really, you know, strong and go to the gym and work out and everything else. But I just don't think, in my opinion, he belongs in the ring. I think he belongs backstage, where he'd be a lot more valuable to the wrestlers around him, to learn locker room etiquette, to learn how to get over in a promo, how to put yourself over as that character. I mean, he's done an amazing job as such. I mean, look at the transitions of his character throughout the years. It's absolutely off the charts. There's no one who's ever stayed in the business this long and has been this relevant for as long as he has. I don't think. I mean, Hulk Hogan is a great name, and it's out there. You know, Hulk Hogan is one of the greats as well. But again, you know, he fell off the map for quite a few years, and where, you know, The Undertaker was still in the same company for this, you know, doing the same things he's always done. So, you know, besides the real reason The Undertaker is still working, well, we all know why. The truth is that more than likely, you know, The Undertaker might want to have gotten out of the ring, but Vince McMahon is not going to let him. He's under contract, and that we do know. He signed a contract. Vince McMahon wants him to perform, and that's it. He's a legend, but he's not getting out. He's not going to get out. So this is a problem. And my big thing is what's going to happen with Vince McMahon? Is he going to finally realize that the NXT is a brand? Is he going to accept it? Is he going to put it out there? Is he going to make this a place where guys can come in and stay there for their careers and do great things? Or are they going to get there and they're going to say, oh, well, I got the call and I'm going to the main roster. I wonder what I'm going to get when I get there. I mean, there's so many wrestlers to go down a list of, you know, Robert Roode and so many others that just got to the main roster and just, they've gone nowhere. I thought Robert Roode was the second coming of Ric Flair again. I mean, Robert Roode was so good in NXT that he was an amazing heel. And we talk about how great NXT is and how great Tommaso Ciampa is as a heel. Robert Roode was, I think, by and far the second coming of Ric Flair again. I don't know if he would have had such great promos like Ric Flair did, but just the heel-like behavior, just to get over and say, you know, I am who I am and I am glorious, and he got over big time. I mean, just big time. So, everybody, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think if Vince is ever going to let NXT be its own brand and let Triple H run it the way he sees fit with the guys he has down there. working as hard as ever, trying to make it their own. I would really love to know what the real dynamics are in that McMahon family. I mean, we see Shane all over TV, which shouldn't be. SmackDown and Raw does not need another McMahon on TV. And he needs to go and do whatever he needs to do for the family business behind the scenes, being an executive, because the truth is he does not belong on TV anymore. I don't think he ever really did. I think it was nice to see him in spots here and there with certain other wrestlers doing, matches here and there, but never, never, never to be a regular on TV. Besides, why would you want to be on 4 or 5 segments every week, taking away from the performers that should be in those spots? We have too many performers, too many wrestlers that need to be there, and they're not, because Shane is taking up that time. So let me know what you think down in the comments comments down below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the video. If you like what you hear, please subscribe. I will be putting out some more videos in the next coming days. When you subscribe, make sure you hit that bell for all notifications so you do know when I do upload another video. I will be getting out some videos this week. I do have a lot more availability this week with some changes in my schedule, so I will have some more stuff up and ready. The next video is definitely going to be something you want to see. Stay tuned to the channel for more information, and if you're looking for my Twitter handle, it's down at the bottom of the page there. Feel free to hit me up on some Twitter. If you're on Twitter, then you can see when I'm going to upload a video and maybe comment on the discussions of what you think the next topic for the next video should be. I do have a number of ideas that we're going to do, but I would love to hear from you guys. So until next time, I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.